Hey guys, this is Anime Ball Z here, and today we are going to be doing the second part of what if Deku was a Hellhound. You guys completely smashed the like goal, so the like goal for this video will be 170 likes. I have nothing much to say in the intro, so without further ado, let's get into the video.
Slick talker since a jit. Winter time, all the time, ooh, yeah. Look at the way that I move, swag. Disrespectful and I'm rude, okay. I had cocaine in the school.
Now we start this what if in the battle trial arc. Everything goes the same with Deku being with Uraraka as a team and him being against Deku and Bakugo. Deku looks around because he found Bakugo's scent and he uses his enhanced hearing to hear where he is. Deku is sneaking around when he senses Bakugo. He can feel it. He currently doesn't have his Hellhound powers because he can't just do it at will, but he does have enhanced strength. Deku dodges the surprise explosion, then jumps right over Bakugo. Deku turns and tries to punch Bakugo, but he misses and gets exploded back. Deku doesn't get hurt by the heat, but only gets slingshot across the area. Deku slams into the wall and gets overcome by rage. Deku growls at Bakugo ferociously and his eyes go a fiery orange. This time more of his quirk is revealed and he gets claws and his hands are cloaked in fire and so are his feet. Deku runs at Bakugo on all fours and jumps in the air. Bakugo explodes him, but Deku jumps over and in front of the explosion, being shot forwards instead. Deku kicks Bakugo and a gush of fire is released. Bakugo slams into the wall, then Deku finger flicks him deep into the wall with a gush of hot fire. Deku runs up the wall and leaps off of the wall. He gets hit by the explosion, but he doesn't really get hurt. Deku runs at him at like 100 miles per hour, and to Bakugo, he looks like a blur. Deku has been concentrating his one for all into his arm, and when he strikes, Bakugo goes right through the wall and through the building completely. Bakugo hits the floor and gets knocked out. Deku growls into the air with ferocity, and then he gets information from Uraraka that the rocket has been found. Deku gets up to the floor where the rocket is extremely quickly and arrives in something like 15 to 20 seconds. Deku runs at Tenya with full force and they clash. Deku kicks Tenya into the air, then finger flicks a gush of fire to slam him into the ceiling. Deku says in a growly voice, "Go for the rocket thing!" Tenya falls to the ground and has blood running from his hair and mouth. Uraraka touches the rocket and Deku's powers fade as he stares down Tenya. Uraraka and Deku easily win and Deku didn't really go all out then. Bakugo is enraged from this, but he doesn't actually realise how little he was trying. The next battle trial is with Todoroki and all goes the same. Also, Deku doesn't have to visit Recovery Girl because he doesn't actually get injured. He does get injured from One For All, don't get me wrong, but his Hellhound power does heal it very quickly. All Might feels like a great teacher because of how easily Deku wiped out Bakugo and Tenya. However, them both are at Recovery Girl, but they do end up healing fully. The next arc we'll be going over is the Usj Arc. They choose presidents and Deku is definitely chose to be elected class president. Yaoyorozu is still elected as vice president. Deku, Uraraka and Tenya have lunch together and Tenya says, "Deku, congratulations on getting class president. To be honest, I'm not surprised. You're extremely powerful." Uraraka says, "I'd say you could rival even Todoroki in power." Deku says, "I'm probably not that strong. I can't control my power, but at least I learned to talk while using my quirk." Tenya explains that he's from the famous hero family, the Ida family. He also talks about Tensei Ida and how he's his little brother. Deku says, "That's sick." A siren goes off, informing them that someone has infiltrated the school. Deku rushes in front because he can run at like 35 to 40 miles per hour sprint speed and he looks at the problem. Deku uses his Hellhound powers to project his voice. He says, "It's just the press, everybody calm down." Everyone calms down and stops the mass evacuation. This time, Deku doesn't resign and keeps his position as class president. Nothing really significant happens until the USJ villains battle. They get introduced to the space hero 13 and he talks to them about what they are planned to do. After this, the portal is opened and a ton of villains are released. 13 is tasked with escorting them out of the area, but Deku also has increased intelligence, even more than the amount he already had. Deku says, "They came here with this many villains, it must be a really big reason. They're planning to kill All Might." Kurogiri says, "Correct. Listen to the boy." Everyone looks at Deku because he just thought of a correct solution so quickly on his feet. Shota starts defeating the villains one by one and the Class 1A students are teleported to different zones. Deku has still been teleported to the flood zone, but with Tsuyu alone. Deku reveals his Hellhound powers and growls at all of the villains. He jumps off of the boat and finger flicks a gush of fire down to them all. Deku smashes the ground when the water has been spread and launches several villains away, and most are killed when they land on the floor. Deku says, "Tsuyu, grab my hand!" He grabs Tsuyu's hand and uses One for All to launch up into the air before the water caves in again. Deku and Tsuyu scout the area, and Deku uses his enhanced eyes to make strategy to keep himself and Tsuyu alive. Deku notices Nomu and quickly sees that he is built to kill All Might. This is the one that will kill All Might. Deku says that black humanoid thing is supposed to kill All Might. I won't let that happen. I know Deku's stronger, but nowhere near as strong to kill a Nomu. Deku launches himself at the Nomu with increased speed from One for All and his Hellhound power. He makes his hands into a blade formation with his claws and he stabs right through the Nomu. I know this doesn't seem doable, but just hear me out. The Nomu was built to kill All Might, and it does have shock absorption, yes, so that means if Deku was to punch Nomu, it would do nothing. But All Might doesn't have claws, and they didn't have to build Nomu to handle claws because he was supposed to kill All Might. He doesn't need to handle claws to kill All Might because All Might doesn't have claws. So from this, I believe that Deku could completely impale the Nomu. Don't you worry, because this doesn't do nearly as much damage as it should. Deku says to himself, yes, I knew that would work. This little black thing isn't supposed to handle claws. It's supposed to handle All Might. So if I carry on doing this, hopefully something will happen. Deku engulfs his hands and feet in blazing fire, then runs at the Nomu. The Nomu just stands there while Deku leaps at him. Deku puts his claws together to form a blade-like thing like he did before, but it actually doesn't work this time. The Nomu isn't phased. Deku just about manages to pierce the Nomu, but not all the way through. Then the Nomu slams Deku in the back with both fists. This instantly breaks Deku's back and paralyzes him. But it actually does heal in time. Then he pulls his hand out and jumps away. He then sees All Might and All Might continues the battle. Deku's quirk fades and he sees blood down his arm. All Might eventually wins, but just barely. Tenya comes back with the teachers and the League of Villains are defeated. Everything goes similar after this in the Usj Arc, and that marks an end to the arc. Now we cut to the UA Sports Festival arc. The meeting about the League of Villains goes the same. The sports festival is coming up and Deku has been training extremely hard with his quirk. He is also on his way there to getting the full fire cloak, meaning he will have a powerful aura of fire, but he only has fire up to his waist and shoulder. Uraraka still says she wants to win the festival and reveals the real reason she wants to become a hero and all that. Now, All Might invites Deku to lunch. All Might informs him about his 50-minute limit and Deku still feels sorry about it. All Might says, you have gained some control over One for All and you actually managed to completely impale the Nomu. All Might then talks about how he wants Deku to reveal to the world that he is the next All Might, but Deku says, I think enough people already know my strength. It won't really surprise them. All Might says, you sure have gotten confident. Deku and Class 1A get stormed by a bunch of other UA class members and someone says, look, it's Deku, that fire dog boy. Everyone starts trying to get past to talk to him, but Deku does feel a little intimidated by the swarm. Bakugo is extremely jealous of Deku's popularity and storms in front of them. Bakugo says, why are you worrying about this loser? I'll be the one to destroy any one of you. Someone in the crowd says, didn't Deku knock you out? Bakugo then goes into a screaming enraged phase, but no one really cares. Everything goes the same about the general studies class member saying that they can get kicked out of 1A and all, so let's cut to Todoroki's encounter with Deku. Before their encounter in their 2 weeks, Deku has grown even more powerful and his Hellhound powers have also increased in power, now quadrupling to quintupling the base power. And also, his base power is also increased a little from the Hellhound power and quite a bit from just bare bone training. Todoroki encounters Deku and still says the same stuff about him being stronger than him. Deku doesn't seem too phased though because he knows his new power is very much. Now they walk out to the freshman stage and Bakugo is still the player representative because I don't feel like this needs to be changed. Now we get to the obstacle race. When the race has started, Todoroki still ices everyone. Deku gets enraged from this and glows fiery orange eyes. He finger flicks the ice and explodes forward with a firestorm behind him. He runs on all fours and he is way faster than Todoroki, so he just straight up passes him. Deku uses his feet and One For All to shoot forward, leaving Todoroki far behind, but since Todoroki really wants him, he uses ice more often. Now we get to the second stage. Deku has insane reflexes and agility with his Hellhound powers, so he just ends up running and sliding down the wires, but Todoroki ends up catching up to him, but he still takes a strong lead. Now we get to the Minefield. Deku smiles as he quickly gets an idea. He jumps far into the mine, but decently up. He uses 2 finger flicks, one on each hand, simultaneously, and when he does this, the minefields are set off. This increases the power of his finger flick, and Deku goes flying across the minefield like a meteor, being fully engulfed in a dome of fire. Also, when he did this, he forced Todoroki and Bakugo to stop due to the huge explosion. Deku quickly runs and manages to get through the hallway and finish in a strong and far first place. Deku's quirk fades when his anger fades and he sees the whole crowd cheering him on. Present Mike is extremely surprised from how far he was from second place, because Todoroki and Bakugo came long after him. Deku is still number 1, which means that he is still worth 10 million in the cavalry battle. Deku finds out about this and quickly tries to find members for the cavalry battle. He has Uraraka as a partner, but as usual when he wants Tenya to be with him, Tenya is with another team. Deku still gets Tokoyama to be with him and he takes advantage of this. Deku then finds Mei Hatsume, a person from the support class. Now, Deku has his team sorted after hearing about the different roles and the cavalry battle begins. To be honest, there's nothing really significant to note here except that Deku's team manages to keep their 10 million headband because Deku actually finger flicked Team Todoroki. What I mean by this is when Tenya used a Recipro Burst, Deku used 2 finger flicks simultaneously, obviously, to slow down the Recipro Burst, taking away its efficiency and making his team keep the headband. Deku is a shining star in his festival and All Might sure is proud of him. Deku is amazed that he gets to continue the festival. After their encounter, Todoroki still takes Deku away at the noon break or lunch break. Todoroki still notices his connection to All Might, but not as significantly as in the series, because Deku's fire kind of masked the One For All. Todoroki still says to him about how he will beat him since his dad has been number 2, he wants to beat All Might, etc. When All Might encounters Endeavor, Endeavor is instead furious, but not really at All Might, but he just takes it out on him. All Might tries to tell him about teaching the next generation and how to do it, but it doesn't work on him. Endeavor just storms away. Everything after that is the same with the mini games and stuff until the final stage, the battle tournament. The first match we'll be covering is Deku vs Satoshi. Mashirao still informs Deku about his brainwashing quirk, so Deku makes a strategy. Deku makes it to the stage and eventually the battle commences. Deku doesn't move at all and somehow Deku still gets brainwashed after he still responds to one of Hitoshi's insults or harsh statements. Deku doesn't know what to do now. Deku's body just gradually goes to the edge of the ring, but when Deku gets enraged, something else happens. It's like his Hellhound powers is like a whole different mind. He doesn't even see all of the eyes in front of him. He doesn't need to. He's not even that close yet. He turns and growls at Hitoshi. He runs at him on all fours and Hitachi doesn't know what to do now. Deku grabs him by the leg and drags him right across the arena. Deku jumps high into the air, then slingshots Hitoshi away and off of the ring. Deku growls into the air and his power fades. This time, it wasn't good. He gets a headache, and this headache isn't like any normal headache, it's torture. Deku coughs blood and his fangs and claws grow, but his power doesn't show. Deku stands and looks up to see a dog. It's a dog with a cloak of blazing orange fire and he can barely keep his eyes open. He says, "Who are you?" He says in a growly voice, "I am you. I am your subconscious. Our power is becoming more powerful. We will win." When he says win, Deku closes his eyes and the word turns into an echo. Deku's pain fades and he stands, looking unfazed. Deku sees that his power will be stronger and way harder to control. Deku walks off the stage unharmed and gets ready for the next matches and his next match. The next matches go pretty much the same, identical pretty much, until we get to Deku vs Todoroki. This is the fight everyone has been waiting for, the battle between some of the best, Todoroki and Deku. The battle commences and Todoroki is on the offense. Todoroki sends a huge amount of ice to Deku, but Deku finger flicks it with fire and it turns to water vapor. The crowd is annoyed because it's clouding the stage, they can't really see the fight anymore. Deku can still see pretty much fine even without his Hellhound powers, but Todoroki is having a tough time. Deku throws a punch at Todoroki and it lands, but Todoroki turns and uses precision ice to stab him in the stomach. When the water vapor fades, they see Deku on one knee, impaled with a huge stake of ice. I know this doesn't seem like Todoroki, but he is still holding a huge grudge for saying that he will take the headband in the cavalry battle. Deku just looks up and smiles with blood dripping down from his mouth. You think a simple stake of ice will kill me? His fiery orange eyes return and he grabs a block of ice. He straight up melts, then evaporates the ice with just his fire-cloaked hand alone. He stands and the hole in him is easily healed. Deku has his hair covering his left eyes and he only has his right eye open, staring down Todoroki. Deku punches Todoroki and he goes flying. Todoroki plants a huge wall of ice behind him, but he still breaks in. It only helped him to stop his movement. Deku growls and says, "You want me to win against a guy that doesn't use his full potential? You would never become a hero with that stupid mentality. Show me your full potential!" Deku growls so loud that it shakes the floor. Then Deku zooms at Todoroki, and for most of the people in the crowd, he just looks like a blur. Deku punches Todoroki back away easily because of Todoroki's slowed reaction time because of the ice, and Todoroki creates 2 consecutive walls of ice just to stay in the arena barely. Todoroki turns and knows what he has to do. Todoroki reveals his fire and a huge gush of fire is released. Deku growls with ferocity and the fire doesn't even do anything to him since he's completely fire resistant. Deku reveals his One For All 2 and his fire together as a way to stand his ground. When they see this, a pro hero steps in to check over the battle in case it gets too bad. Todoroki zooms a huge amount of ice right at Deku and Deku isn't phased. He just jumps right over it with One For All and One For All grows in his arm. Todoroki reveals his very hot fire hand, but Deku still isn't phased. Deku easily handles the power of Todoroki's attack and punches him with full force with a growl to back it. The explosion is handled though by the pro hero Cementos, but Deku isn't willing to stop. When Todoroki is out of bounds, Deku growls into the air then leaps at Todoroki. He starts punching him and slashing at him because when he punched Todoroki the second time after revealing his Hellhound power, he quickly lost control. Deku grabs him by the neck and holds him into the air. Todoroki has blood all over his body and sees only blur. Deku is stopped by a group of pro heroes and his power fades. Todoroki is brought to Recovery Girl and even Recovery Girl still can't fully heal him. Nowhere near. Todoroki is furious, not just about how he lost, but also how much weaker he is than Deku. Deku is fine, but he doesn't remember any of it. When he gets into the stands to watch the next match, everyone is a little scared of Deku. Deku sits down and says, "What's going on?" No one is man enough to step up to him, but Bakugo is. They're all scared of you because you just almost killed Todoroki. He's not even that strong though. Deku says, "What? I don't remember anything." Well, after I pulled the ice stake out, then after I punched him through 2 ice walls, it's blank in my mind. Anyway, I'm facing you in the finals. Bakugo on the outside doesn't seem phased and chuckles menacingly, but on the inside he's honestly quite scared. Deku gets ready and Bakugo does too. Before the match, Bakugo keeps telling himself, "I'll beat him, I'll beat him, I'll beat him." Bakugo and Deku take the stage. Deku and Bakugo make their stances and the match begins. Deku fuels himself with anger from the bullying of Bakugo in the past and even up to now. This fuels his rage and his eyes go a fiery orange. He gains a fire cloak on his arms and legs, but not his full body. He runs at Bakugo, but he gets exploded backwards. Deku growls at Bakugo and runs right at him again. Deku ducks under the swing of Bakugo's arm and grabs the arm. He swivels up with the arm to get airborne. He breaks the arm, then he punches Bakugo away. Deku uses his speed this time to its fullest and makes himself a blur. Bakugo manages to explode Deku to slow him down and Bakugo dodges the attack. Deku is about to get out of the ring when he digs his claws into the arena to stop him. Deku reveals his 2 fingers and finger flicks Bakugo. Bakugo sees a gush of fire, so when he gets up, he knows that Deku could come out anywhere and makes a heavily defensive stance. Deku appears out of the smoke and punches him with great force. Bakugo slides across the floor, but he puts his hand back and explodes him from behind to slow the speed. Deku stands up with his death stare and his fire explodes. He says, "It ends here. He rushes Bakugo and dodges an explosion by jumping very high in the air. Deku finger flicks a huge gush of fire, not to hurt Bakugo, but to distract him. Deku spins in the air and lands behind Bakugo. Bakugo turns a little, then gets punched away. As Bakugo is flying away, Deku uses one for all in his legs and uses such speed that can't be seen at all. He slams Bakugo right through the wall and into the stands. Deku stands there and his power fades. Someone in the crowd says, he can be scary, but he sure is flashy. Deku ends up winning the UA Sports Festival and some people aren't surprised. Deku could barely remember winning, but he does remember it vaguely. He is elated and so is All Might. Deku gets on the first podium and everyone chants his name. I actually call him Deku in this what if because it's just easier, but the crowd and fans call him Taiku, meaning Firestorm. Deku started being called that in UA and it eventually made it around everywhere. Deku was also happy for Tokoyami and they are all rewarded their medals. Bakugo also still gets all the stuff that ties him down. All Might says his speech and all, and the UA Sports Festival ends. After that, everything goes pretty much the same for the arc, and after that it comes to a close. So that will conclude the second part of What If Deku Was a Hellhound. Please like and comment anything that you liked about this what if or anything that I should improve on for the next part. If you really like this what if, then you can subscribe and put on post notifications to be told when the next part of these what ifs will be made with great accuracy. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.